Okay, today is the 20th of December 2021, and Oriol Bohigas was born on December 20th, but he died on the 30th of November this year. So almost 3 years, 3 weeks ago, he died. He was an important Catalan architect, and I will try to show some of his works. But first, let's read a little bit. So Oriol Bohigas y Guardiola, born on the 20th of December 1925 and died on the 30th of November 2021, was a Spanish, I think he would have preferred if I read, was a Catalan architect and urban planner known for his work in the modernization of Barcelona. I say this because he was a nationalist and he he believed in the pro-independence movement of Catalonia. So Bohigas was born in Barcelona, in Spain, on the 20th of December 1925 in a Catalan bourgeois family. His father was the philologist Pere Bohigas y Balaguer, and he studied at the Institute Escola de la Generalitat. During the Civil War, he moved to Olot, province of Girona, where he continued his high school studies. Bohigas graduated in architecture in 1951 from the Escuela Técnica Superior de Arquitectura de Barcelona, the Barcelona School of Architecture, where in 1963 he obtained the title of doctor in architecture. Bohigas was a critic of the architecture of his city and an advocate of modernity from as early as age 20. In 1950, the group Arquitectes y Técnics Catalans per el Progrés de la Arquitectura Contemporánea, to which he belonged, was condemned, as the censor considered that modern architecture was leftist separatist, which was probably the case. In January of the following year, in the weekly Destino, he harshly criticized Francoist architecture, and from there founded the Grupo R of modern architects, or Grupo R, or I don't know how to read in Catalan. And here I would say again that I admire activist architects, militant architects, and militant architecture. I think it is important for architects and students of architecture to fight for what they believe in, to be engaged, not to be indifferent. At the beginning of the 1960s, Bohigas founded the firm MBM Architects with David Mackay and Joseph Martorell, and published his first book, Barcelona entre el Pla Cerda e il Barraquisme, Barcelona between the Pla Cerda and the Shanty Town. In 1964, he joined the Escuela Técnica Superior de Arquitectura de Barcelona as a professor, and in 1977, he was elected its director, a position he held until 1980. He was a member of the political current of progressive Catalanism and the Gauche Divine, which combined the progressive, intellectual, and anti-Franco bourgeoisie. Here he is as a young man, and making a coffee for himself, perhaps, and with books behind him, of course. He was an intellectual, but I'm not so sure he didn't have a bourgeois side too, considering he was smoking a cigar. A cigar to me is almost a symbol of the bourgeoisie. Anyway, here he is in older age. As I said, he died on the 30th of November this year, so about 3 weeks ago. You see him with a cigar. So let's see some of his works, but before, let's see some drawings. A few drawings. I couldn't find too many, maybe because I searched for his name with drawings or sketches, and actually I should have perhaps searched for MBM, which was his architectural firm. That's why I also had some difficulties to find pictures with some of his works. But he was also an urbanist, and he was important for the for advocating an open urbanism in Barcelona, which I don't know if it was such a great thing. I had visited Barcelona, and somehow I like the most the medieval Barcelona as opposed to the more modern Barcelona. Anyway, Escola Tau in Barcelona from 1974. And it's definitely a modern architecture, and I think well done. And you know, his advocating modern architecture, I think, was correct and welcomed. I think he also, if I understood correctly, he was rather critical of Sagrada Familia, which you know, I could understand in the sense that you know, that building is so different from the city at large. But on the other hand, you know, it's a building of great importance, cultural, spiritual, and so on. I don't know. I don't know enough about this story, but that's what I read, that he was rather critical of that explosion of individual genius that Gaudi allowed himself to have there. Anyway, it might have been also envy, because architects are usually very envious of other architects' work, and the genius of Gaudi cannot be contested. I like these works of Bohigas and his office or his firm in the 70s. It has something of that, you know, healthy, luminous, democratic spirit, which late 60s and early 70s had. So this was the office: Oriol Bohigas, Joseph Martorell, and David McKay, MBM architects. I see the B is actually between the two M's, so it should have been written Joseph Martorell, Oriol Bohigas, and David McKay. This is a building from 1977, 1988, and it was published actually by a Romanian website, which is very good, called Off Houses, and it originates in Suceava. It's a collection of it's a great archive of images. There are no texts, but images of important buildings. I would say a very significant work. Unfortunately, I forgot the name of the Romanian architect who does it, but he does a very good job. I found these pictures on that website, and they are all excellent. And I like this building by MBM. It's you know, a building which has a healthy modernism, if I am to call it so. From 1977. I'm not sure about these. Are these, is this a stair? Are these steps? They seem to be rather tall. Anyway, now La Villa Olimpica, the Olympic village of Poblenou and the Olympic port from 1992 in Barcelona. He, as I said, he was instrumental in bringing to Barcelona urban visions and urban schemes that I guess they advocated the connection with the sea, with the Mediterranean Sea, and this is, I think, a good idea. But I don't know. I mean, this kind of urban openness. It's I don't know. I visited Barcelona and I had a funny feeling there. In fact, I was very anxious in Barcelona for some reason. By maybe it was because of my personal problems at the time. I don't know. I like the medieval city, but the new city, including what was made, the modernization of Barcelona a long time ago by all those identical blocks of flats and that segmentation of the urban tissue, regular and so on, seemed to be maddening, especially when the streets were continuously assaulted by motorcycles. Here we see Frank Gehry, of course. I don't know. It's something about. I think Barcelona, despite its power, cultural, economical, and so on, I still think it has problems, identity problems in terms of finding the appropriate urbanism for itself. And I think this is shown also through because of the rebelliousness of the diagonal avenue, which cuts through the regular, almost monotone urbanism of a good part of the city, and the Manhattanization of Barcelona is first of all is not quite Manhattanization, because yes, there are towers, but Manhattan, and I lived there for many years, it's almost a medieval city. I know I outrage many people saying this, because the streets, although they appear to be very wide, they appear to be very narrow. I mean, they appear to be very narrow, although they're actually wide. And because the buildings are so tall, there is a lot of shadow on those avenues or streets that appear to be narrow. And in that sense, I thought that Manhattan has a darkness which somehow I associate with the streets in a medieval city, although in many respects it's the very opposite. But here, because there are such large spaces between the towers, there isn't enough shadow and there is no feeling of narrowness. And thus, yes, there are some buildings, some good buildings here, but I don't know. I think Barcelona still has a hard time to find for itself an urban identity. And yes, there is a collection of various buildings by various architects, some of them famous, some of them less famous. Anyway, the Pabellón del Futuro of the Seville Expo in 1992 he did this building, and actually the engineer of this building, and the engineering was very important. And I told him today, I remember from last year that Bruce Danziger, he was the engineer for the structure of this building, and he became a friend of ours. And I asked him today, this is what memory tells me, that he presented the studies for this structure, for this pavilion, is a North American structural engineer. But I think Oriol Bohigas worked with him for this building. It doesn't look spectacular from here, but from what Bruce told us last year, I think there were some very sophisticated structural decisions made here for this building. At that time, Bruce was working with Peter Rice, a very famous structural engineer who unfortunately died young. And Yeah, if I'm not wrong, this was done, the structure of this building was done by Bruce Danziger, but the architecture was done by, but you cannot separate them actually, the structure from the architecture. I wish I knew more about engineering to explain what Bruce said last year. Um, Probably with some effort I would be able to, but at this point I don't feel the impetus for making that effort. All in all, I think Bohigas was an architect who meant something for Barcelona, and you know, I think we have nothing to lose if we know a little bit about him. Palau Nou de la Rambla in Barcelona, 1993. Oriol Bohigas and Joseph Martorell. Again, a modern building with some ability designed, but would I be very moved by it? I have seen other buildings similar to this one. I don't think is astonishingly, original building. I like more the buildings made in the 70s by them than what they did now in the 90s. Now I see here balconies, and if I understood correctly an article I read in the morning, he promoted the idea to have buildings without balconies. If I understood correctly, maybe I understood incorrectly. It was a badly translated article. That's why I'm a little bit puzzled by what I thought I understood in the morning. Anyway, here we definitely see balconies. And Barcelona has a lot of balconies, even the buildings by Antoni Gaudi. The Pompeu Fabra University, I don't know if I found pictures here. I did. I say this because several projects by him, I couldn't find pictures. I just couldn't. Maybe I should have searched, using the Catalan language, which I did actually for the title of the buildings, the name of the buildings. Well, maybe I should have searched for Spanish websites or whatever. Anyway, here is this university. I don't find it, strikingly original, nor do I find it strikingly Catalan or Barcelonese. I mean, this kind of architecture could have been in many places. I remember Eric Miralles, the very important Catalan architect who died unfortunately young, and I would say a more original architect than Bohigas. I attended a conference by him in New York, and he said, we in Spain, we don't have towers. We like horizontal buildings. And I asked him, what about Sagrada Familia? And he said, yes, it's an exception. Now, since that time, Spain began to build some towers, some of them built by, architects from other countries. Anyway, offices building for the trade union, UGT, Barcelona, 2002, 2008. I think these buildings built with, but I'm a little bit surprised here because these kind of pictures were taken usually in the 60s and early 70s, not in the years 2000s, black and white pictures. And look, I mean, look at the look at the, you know, this looks like a picture from the 60s, at the most late 70s, not from the year 2000. No, something must be wrong here, and I apologize. But these are the pictures I found under this name, Offices Building for the Trade Union, UGT. But I don't think the atmosphere of the street here is not from the years 2000s. It's no, impossible. Now, Techno Campus University in Mataro, 2004, 2011, no pictures. I think this one also no pictures. Yes. Liceo Metropolitan Station, I think here, no. Auditorium and Sala Gaudi here. Also, I couldn't find pictures. Apparently, he built an auditorium and Sala Gaudi in La Pedrera building, which was an important building, is an important building by Antoni Gaudi. No pictures. Now, the Central Police Station in Plaza España, Barcelona. It might be that here I don't have pictures, so sorry, but we have pictures here. The White Tower in Plaza Europa, and from 2006 2010. And this, I think, is a good tower. You know, it has some interest to it, and it's luminous and optimistic, and I think it's successful. Moderately, we see here very a small fragment of a tower by Toyo Ito. The red one is by Toyo Ito, and we are soon going to have a look at the insidious insidiously phallic tower by Jean Nouvel in the proximity of another building by Oriol Bohigas. Now, this is an interesting work, La Casa dels Excluis, even the name is interesting, Excluis. Maybe it could be dedicated to Saint Andrew because he was crucified on an X-like looking cross in Barcelona, 2006, 2011. It's a housing complex, but I think it has qualities, and you know, it's almost surprising to see this building after we saw the previous buildings. Sorry about this. As I said, I had some difficulties to find, you know, the desired pictures, but all in all, this is an interesting work, and it has some validity, I would say. MBM is the same architecture office that he founded, and I imagine he was an important presence there. Maybe he did these sketches, I don't know. You see, there are, you know, logics. Now, offices building for RBA editors, Barcelona, 2007, 2011. A different work indeed from the previous one. Well, office buildings are often predictable, at least to an extent, and this one is no exception. I personally think these older buildings, industrial or otherwise, using masonry walls with bricks, have a lot of inspirational power and potential. I don't understand very well why this was not continued in the new architecture. Ricardo Bofill, at the beginning of his career, and Taller de Arquitectura, built a few buildings, we're using bricks. And I think, the tradition of the place in Barcelona would have allowed for something like this to be developed. But you see, this building has nothing in common with this. And I think this is actually a loss. Not that it is a bad building, but okay, now here we arrive at the most spectacular work. I don't even know how to pronounce it. First, superficially, I could approximate the first word with Disney, but it's not Disney. But how to read it? I prefer not to. It's a hub, nevertheless, HUB. It's a hub from 2001, 2003, and here it is, an assertive hub that is very assertive. We had seen architecture in this period, or even from Carme Pinos, also, working and living in Barcelona. Yeah, sure, why not? But here is Jean Nouvel. I'm beginning to, with all my admiration, respect for Jean Nouvel, I'm beginning to have some question marks about him when I contemplate this tower and the similar tower he built in Belgium for the police headquarters. In my opinion, excessively and too explicitly phallus-like. And I think architecture can be vigorous and even masculine to an extent, but without becoming, literally so. I think architecture is an abstract art, and when it becomes, too figurative, so to speak, I think it is a problem. Plus, I think, if we are to be green, or if we are to be other, or if we are to be sustainable, or if we are to be more sensitive towards nature, towards each other, we don't need, I think, such assertive, almost arrogant verticalities, in my opinion. Not to name them differently. Fortunately, at night it's less aggressive, but look at it during the day. It's. I am surprised that an architect who advocated architecture with a plural, meaning architectures, that is Jean Nouvel, would build something, and he built in Barcelona even a park. Maybe, competing in a way with Parc Güell by Gaudi. But this tower is really, I don't know why he built it in this way. It doesn't matter, even if you see just the top part of it is, in my opinion, problematic, not to say something else. But the building by Bohigas is this one. And yeah, I think it's okay. It's sculptural. It has cantilever parts. It has exterior staircase. It's okay. It's an okay building, but it expresses, in my opinion, maybe a problematic optimism in modernity. A little bit problematic, although its grayness would evoke something else, perhaps. Now you see at night, the tower by Jean Nouvel, because of the colors, becomes a little bit different, but I would say only a little bit. While the building by Bohigas is, I don't know. I don't know very well how to describe it. It's fine, I guess. It's fine, but still, it's a modernity without any ambition to bring anything new. It's just that it is, you know, more interesting perhaps than the building we see here. Although it cannot easily compete with the, you know, with the with the building by Jean Nouvel. Anyway. And this is the last picture of this insufficient presentation on Oriol Bohigas at night. I don't know what's going on here. It's almost like, you know, the Earth seen from space. I don't know. I don't know. I guess that maybe that's what it is. It's some kind of a sculpture or environmental you know, artwork here. I don't know. So here is Bohigas, here is Jean Nouvel, and here is the Earth, seen from the sky, seen from cosmos, seen from space, what we call maybe a little bit problematically space, but brought down to Earth. Thank you.